Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Pei Halacha Beis Daf Memhei. We left off on Daf Memhei Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the top of the Amud Rabavo, B'Shem Rab Shimon ben Lakish. So let's quickly catch up. We concluded yesterday's share explaining the sheet of the Tanakama, which is the case is that a 1 ear of leket got mixed into an entire stack. Not in the scenario where there is a knas, where there is no knas. So all the balabas has to do is give that leket to the ani. He doesn't know which one that is. So the Mishnah, the Tanakama says, okay, so he will exchange the leket of the ani with one of his own. However, as we explained, leket is exempt from maisvus. So therefore, when he gives the ani 1 ear, it has to be given to him after it had the maisvus already removed. And we learned yesterday exactly how that is done. Now, we really have to continue Bishitas Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer does not accept that the owner can simply effect a substitution for the per person for his leket. Why? Because the leket was never in the possession of the ani, for the ani to then give it to the balabas, for the balabas to have the right to take it from the ani and to give him in exchange. The ani never owned it. Now I know that the owner owes one to the ani. So what? The Rabbi Eliezer says he cannot effect a substitution. It's not his. So what has to happen? So Rabbi Eliezer says the ani has to lift up the entire Gadish. And as we learned the Pnei Moshe, that's what we're going to learn today. It's not that the owner is telling the ani, since one in this stack is yours, have in mind to acquire that one. No. Rabbi Eliezer says the ani has to acquire the entire stack. Let's review what we learned when we learned the Mishnah. This is actually, according to many, the source of the Rambam that says that you can never affect a kinyan b'davar she'enoi mesuyam. In other words, since you don't know which ear in the stack is the leket one, he can't have the kavanah, since one is mine, whichever one is mine, I'm acquiring. Rabbi Eliezer says it doesn't work that way. He has to make a kinyan hagbah. He has to acquire the whole stack. Why would the balabas give him the whole stack? The ani can walk away with the stack. So we introduced the matana al manas lahachsid. What's the matana al manas lahachsid? The whole stack minus the leket. The leket is not the matana al manas lahachsid. The leket actually will belong to the ani. Now the ani gives the stack back to the balabas. Matana al manas lahachsid, he gave it back. The leket belongs to the ani. We just don't know which one it is. Now Rabbi Eliezer will continue like the Tanakama. Now he'll make the substitution and he'll do what, like we said yesterday, he'll remove really 3, 1 in the right hand, 2 in the left hand, as we learned on top of Daf Memhei. Now, what does the Tanakama do with the argument of Rabbi Eliezer? How could someone make a substitution between 2 items, one theoretically belonging to the ani, one his, if the ani never acquired it? That will be the issue. That will be the main issue of today's daf. And we're going to introduce the words that the Tanakama holds that asu she'eino zoicha ki zoicha. Take, he's not zoicha in it. It's not his. But the Chachamim, perhaps with the koyach of hefked based on hefked, have the capacity, since this needs to happen. Again, these are the words that asu she'eino zoicha ki zoicha. Where else do we find in Shas such a concept? And what we will learn is we're going to learn in the Pnei Moshe with greater detail a Mishnah in B'choros Daf Yud Ches. By the way, you don't have to say Babli B'choros because there is no Yerushalmi B'choros. And over there's a machlokes between Ameir and Rabbi Yossi. And I'll speak out the case when we learn the Gemara inside. But we're going to initially understand that Rabbi Yossi over there holds this concept that also she'eino zoicha ki zoich. And therefore, the Shlakish will say, aha, the Tanakam in our Mishnah follow Shitas Rabbi Yossi. The problem we will have is that we will see is that there is another way of understanding Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah B'choros, and the Gemara is going to conclude that no matter which way you will learn the Shita of Rabbi Yossi, whether it's going to be like Reish Lakish, whether it's going to be like Rabba, which is really Rab Abba, regardless, everyone will conclude that the Tanakama of our Mishnah follows the Shita of Rabbi Yossi. whatever it is that whether he holds asul she'eno zoichik zoicha, or even if he does not subscribe to that, as we'll learn out. And ultimately, we'll conclude today's daf by really saying that, according to one approach, the machlokes in our Mishnah between the Chachamim, the Tanakama, and Abba Eliezer is also whether b'chlal you subscribe to the concept of matana al manas lahachzer. I know that we paskin that we do say matana al manas lahachzer, shema matana. Right, when it comes, for example, the first day of Sukkot, where the shalochem has to be not just she'ul, it has to actually belong. So you give away your lulav. The problem is when you give it away, how do you get it back? How does the other yid do the mitzvah? But as we'll see, that it's really subject to a machlokes, and that will be part of the explanation of the machlokes between our Tanakama and Abba Eliezer, matana al manas lahatzer, shema matana or lav shema matana. Okay. Having said all these words, let's go on Daf Memhei, and we are 4 lines from the top of the Amud by the dot. The issue that we are discussing is that how could the Tanakama hold that the owner can substitute the leket that no ani ever possessed? How can he make a substitution? A substitution should be, I have mine, you have yours, and then we agree to exchange it. If you don't have yours, how can I make that substitution? It's not mine to substitute. Now, I know it's fair, because what should we do? The leket, we don't know which one is the leket. The owner is doing the right thing. He's giving him but there has to be a mechanism. How does that work? So says the Gemara that Rabbi Bohu, B'Shem Reb Shimon ben Lakish, will tell you that our Tanakama follows the Shita of Rabbi Yossi, as we mentioned in our introduction, and as we will learn in a moment. That's really a machlokes that we have in B'Chodesh Daf Yud Ches Amud Beis between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Meir. And before we read the Gemara de Tanin and Taman, before we read this inside, let me share with you the case over there. And really, it's 2 steps. The first step is simpler, and the machlokes is in the second step. What happened? A person either has an animal that is pregnant with twins, and when it gave birth, in the scenario where the male b'chor belongs to the kohen, the animal gave birth to 2. You did not witness which one of the 2 is the b'chor. In other words, one vaday b'chor, one vaday not b'chor. I don't know which one is which. Or similarly, I own 2 animals, and neither of them gave birth before. Each one only had one. One animal never gave birth before. So the first animal is a b'chor. My other animal already gave birth. They are now pregnant. They both gave birth at the same time. No one saw which baby came from which mom. Again, one b'chor, one not b'chor. That's the scenario in the Mishnah. Now, understand 2 unique dinim about an animal that's a b'chor. Number 1, you're not mekadosh it. It's kadosh merachem, and it has to be brought as a korban. Number 2, it's kachim. Number 2, it's the only kachim that if it gets a blemish, it does not need to be redeemed. All other kachim, even after it gets a blemish, you have to do an act of redemption. You have to exchange it on another animal. Not the case by b'chor. It's very lenient. What's the din of a b'chor? That a b'chor that becomes a balmum automatically becomes the financial possession of the kohen with no kedusha. Actually, if he wants, he can sell it to a Yisrael. Okay. So first of all, we have 2 animals. One is a b'chor, one is not a b'chor. So listen to the pickle over here. The financial, there's a financial question. Which one belongs to whom? We say the owner gets to keep the more expensive one. The one that he wants, he gets to give to the kohen the lesser one. But one second, each one has a suffix. The owner, if the owner says, if my animal is a b'chor, it's kaddish. If it is, so I have to wait until when it gets blemished. Okay, when it gets blemished, like we mentioned, even if it was a b'chor, once it's blemished, it's no longer kaddish. So now it's no longer kaddish. It's a din of d'mamayna. The owner can say this was not the b'chor. The kohen also, the kohen gets the animal. Even this man habayis, he cannot offer it as a carbon. Why not? Because maybe his animal was chulin bazara. So both of them, the kohen also, he gets it. He cannot bring it as a carbon. He has to wait until it gets blemished. After it gets blemished, good, I'm a chay. So that's the simple step. Now comes the machlokes. When it comes to non-kachim animals, why we don't practice it b'chutz la'aretz is a big question, even though some people did. There is a halacha, certainly ba'aretz, according to everyone other than Shitas Rabbi Law. Everyone, chutz das yachid, even b'chutz la'aretz, there are three parts of the animal, of a chulin animal, that you have to give to a kohen: the zroya, the lechoyayim, and the kever. Without defining now what they are, we learned this extensively. I think of Masechtas Chulin, we'll learn plenty about it again, God willing. We learned it from the Rambam. Question is, the animal that the owner keeps, what happens to the Zroya, the Lochayim, and the Kevam? That's the question over there. Do we say he has to give it to the Kohen, which is Rav Meir Mimanav Shach, or Rabbi Yossi, who says he doesn't have to do it? And you know what? Before we even read the Tanin and Taman inside, maybe let's look inside the Pnei Moshe, because he quotes the whole Mishnah over there in Bechaydes. Says the Pnei Moshe, you see 10 lines from the top. The Rabbi Yossi, Hi Dino de Masnisan. Dino de Masnisan means our Tanakama, that allows for the owner to make a substitution, even though the Ani never took possession of the leket. Follows, it's similar to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. The Tanid and Taman, we learned over there, Perik Beis, the Bechaydes, after Chesamet Beis, Gabas Feika, the Bechar, after we already explained that the first step is each one gets one, and the owner actually gets to keep the nicer one for himself. So now, we don't know which one came out first, the Echad Loi, the Echad L'Koyen, and now, what about the Matanas? That's the question. So, Upligi Hasu, Rav Meir Rav Yossi, Bezeh Hasheni Hanishad Etzloi, the one that the owner kept, the other one the Kohen has, the one that the owner kept, the Dinoi, of course, he cannot eat it prior to the blemish, and also he cannot blemish it, but you wait until it gets blemished. Right, guys, we are in the first line under the Gemara, in the Pnei Moshe. Now, Rav Meir says, let me add the words, what's the Mimanav Shach? Because the Kohen says, from whichever way you want to look at it, I get it. Guys, let me say this by heart first. If that animal was really the Bechar, so really the whole animal belongs to the Kohen. If that animal is not the Bechar Chulin, a Chulin animal has to have the Matanis removed and given to the Kohen. So the Kohen says, I can't take the whole animal. You gave me the other one. Say that. But Mimanav Shach, those parts are going to be mine. No, it's either the whole thing is mine, and if it's chulin, okay, you have to give me the matanis. Either or. No, that's a gavaldik thing. How can you argue with that? So here comes this asu she'ena zoiche kezoichem. Rabbi Yossi pater min hamatanos. Why is that? That's the key line. Mishum the asu she'ena zoiche kezoichem. Meaning, the one that the owner kept, the coin never took. But let's make believe. It's a bad word. It's not make believe. It's a halachic tool. Halachically, what really happened was, it's as if he gave it to the kohen. Why are we saying it's as if he gave it to the kohen? Because if the one that he kept is a bechor, how can he keep it? He exchanged. How can you exchange? The kohen, he never gave to the kohen both. No, we say that it's as if the one, listen, if the one that he gave to the kohen was the bechor, is good. We're speaking about what happens if really the one that he kept was the bechor. So how does it work? Who gave him the right to keep it? The answer is, it's as if he gave it to the kohen, bechor, and the kohen has the right, once an animal is blemished, the kohen, I said, can sell it. Now you have to know one final halacha, that if the kohen gets a bechor and it gets mummed, and the kohen sells that animal that was kachim, that became now chulin, there is no chiyuv to give the matanes from such an animal. Now that is only if the kohen got it, and the kohen gifted it, or the kohen sold it. Rav Yossi holds that asu she'einu zoicha ki zoicha. Exactly. Even though what really happened was the owner picked the better one for himself. The owner had the right to do it. And he gave to the kohen one. The kohen only got one. Now, if that one is the bechor, then Taka, he would have to give his matanis to the kohen. Why doesn't he have to do it? Because matanis is also a dinah d'mamoinam. There is one side, there's one possibility that the one that he gave to the kohen was chulin. The one that he kept was a bechar. And by the way, if he kept the bechar, he has to give the whole animal to him. But what does Rabbi Yossi say? It's ki'ilu, he gave that animal to the kohen. Ki'ilu. The kohen gave it back to him. Why would the kohen give it back to him? Because he gave the other animal to the kohen. So if his is indeed the bechar that was gifted to the kohen and he got it back, such an animal is exempt from the matanis. That is the source that Reish Lakish is saying that we find in Bechayres, the asu she'ena zoicha kezoicha. Yavaldi. Now you can apply the same thing over here. Let's read inside the Gemara. Shadab Yoisi Yoimer Kol shechalifav biyad koyin patim and amatonois. Kol shechalifav means that when the koyin actually took the bechar and then he exchanged it and he sold it. By the way, the koyin did not gift the bechar to the owner. The koyin exchanged it chalipin because the owner gave him a chulin. We're going now with the presumption that this animal now that the owner has was the bechar, which is why it will be exempt from the matanis, because it's as if he gave it to him. Khalifav means he exchanged it. They never made such an exchange. Rabbi Yossi holds, if that's the case, then he gave it and he purchased it back. An animal that a bechar, blemished bechar that you purchase from a kohen is exempt from the matanis. Now Rav Meir is machayev. Why is Rav Meir machayev? Because Rav Meir doesn't hold that your oisa she'eno zoicha kezoicha. If the kohen would have had the animal and he taka blemished and he would have sold it or gifted it, taka exempt. That's not what happened. He never got that animal. So the Rabbi holds mishnei to the mimanav shach. If that animal is the bechar, I want the whole animal. You're claiming it's not. Yeah, hold on. Okay, give me that. So in other words, the machlekes Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda is contingent whether you subscribe to the asu she'eno zoicha kezoicha, and now it's going to be gavaldik. And therefore, let's go back to our mission. Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rav Meir, according to Reish Lakish. What do you mean? How can you make an exchange? I know it's the right thing to do, but how do you do it? The owner is keeping the leket of the ani, and he's giving him an ear. If the oni would have owned it and he would have given it to him, that's called the chalipah. The oni never owned it. How does he do it on his own? He has to be koina. He has to acquire it. That's Rabbi Eliezer. He picks up the whole stack. That Tanakama holds no. Tanakama is Rabbi Yossi. I don't need for him to do it. The Torah says, whether it's the Torah, whether it's a hefker bez and hefker, that asu she'eno zoicha kezoicha. Sounds great. There's a problem. The problem is that what we said is only the way Reish Lakish explains Rabbi Yossi and Bechayos. Problem is we're going to have a Rabbah that explains Rabbi Yossi different. And now we're going to have to see how that works with our Tanakama. Amar Rabbi Bon. That's also Wissen sein. Don't learn Bechayos. When he learned Bechayos, don't think that it's the way that Reish Lakish understood it. The owner keeps one, he gives him one. No. That divrei Rabbi Yossi tzarech lizakoyse lekoyin. What really has to happen is that he has to give one animal to the kohen. Then he exchanges that animal back with him. That thing actually has to happen, because Rabbi Yossi does not hold that asu she'eno zoicha kezoicha. What is that, magic? How does it work? The only way you will be exempt from the matanis is if they made a real exchange, because the din that we said that if a person got from a kohen a bechar that's blemished, he's patim and matanis, is only if the bechar belonged to the kohen and the kohen gave you it, or he sold it to you, or he made chalipin with you. If it never belonged to the kohen, you don't have such an exemption. And by the way, that just happens to be that if the kohen knows what he's doing, the kohen won't make such an exchange. The kohen can say, I don't want to make such an exchange. You have a doubt. Why would I make an exchange? Give me one animal and give me the matanas from the other. So that exchange is all to make the owner exempt from the matanas. If a kohen doesn't want it to participate, he doesn't have to participate. So now, Omar Rabbi Yossi, and by the way, just to say, I'm going to say Rabbi Yossi bar Zevida. Who says that is the Rashi Elio. Because whenever you speak about Tana Amoida, we're speaking about Amir Rabbi Yossi the Tana. Now Amar Rabbi Yossi is the Amoida. So we can just say Amoida. Rabbi Yosi Hadod Rabba. Yeah, when Rabba made that statement, he didn't say it against Reish Lakish, but now that we know Reish Lakish, he was the one that put it together. He says, that the statement of Rabba, that Shitas Rabbi Yosi, that you're only exempt from the Matonis if the Kohen actually took possession and made an exchange, is Pligal Reish Lakish. And it's amazing. Rabbi Yosi the Amoida was learning the Sugya in Bechayres. And when he learned that Sugya, when he said we learned Taman means there, he meant here. And that's not the first time he had this in the Yerushalmi. Even though Rabbi Yochanan put it in Peah, so he should have said Tanin on here. He said Tanin on there because these are the words that Rabbi Yosi the Amoida said when he was learning the Sugya in Bechayres. Tanin on Taman we learned over here. Rabbi Eliezer Elam Mizakes Oni B'chol Hagadish. That prior to making the exchange, the Ani has to actually acquire the entire stack, and only then Uma'aser she boilers for noise and loy. Gevaldik. So Reish Lakish, in other words, is saying that the Tanakama is Rabbi Yosi, where no king in his mate. Now that he's asking a question, Rabbi Yosi Damoyer. Now that we're saying, we just quoted Rabba. Rabba argues with Reish Lakish. Rabbi Ba holds that even Rabbi Yosi holds you have to make a kinyan, turning to that Mehammed base. So now the Gemara fears is the kasha. So Amar Rabba, Divrei Rabbi Yosi tzarach l'zakoyse l'koyin. If that's the case, halesle the Rabbi Yosi. You can't explain anymore that our Tanakama follows Rabbi Yosi. So we're back to the question: who is the Tanakama? Rabbi Eliezer is right. So Amar Avmana, no, everyone will hold that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yosi. Everyone will hold. Kol Garma Amra Tehi Rabbi Yosi. Now we already explained how Reish Lakish explains our Mishnah. Reish Lakish understands Asu She'enu Zoiche Kezoiche literally in Bechayres. Tanakama is Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Eliezer is Rav Meir. This final statement is subject to Amachloikas here in the Noise Kalim, but that's learned in this approach. However, even according to Rabba, even according to Rabba, our Tanakama also is Rabbi Yosi. Hold on. Tanya Kumaya, Tanakama in the Babli, Sabri Meimar, Einoi Mizakes Ani B'chol Hagadish Elo Shiboilos Achas. Aha, Gansanaya Mishnah. There was one step that has to happen that the Tanakama did not explicitly say, but it was a given. And this is exactly what we spoke out when we learned the Mishnah. Guys, what's our case over here, Naftali? There's one ear of leket that got mixed into a stack. So we're saying that prior to the owner making an exchange, the owner has to acquire it. Have a simple solution. Let the ani of my choice pick up the whole stack with kavana only to acquire that one leket. Remember we spoke out. Rabbi Eliezer says the ani has to acquire the whole stack. Why? Let the ani only acquire one. He's picking up everything because he doesn't know which one, but he only has kavana to acquire. But that step has to happen. We spoke out at Sadavar She'ena Mesuyim. The Tanakama doesn't have a problem with that. Who cares? It's here. I don't know which one. There's 100 ears, 101 ears. He picks them up. The one that's like it, I'm acquiring. And by the way, if he wouldn't have done it, then the balabas cannot make an exchange because no one holds that asu she'enu zoiche kezoich. And Tanya acharaya. Look how the beautiful wording. But the other Tana, who's the other Tana? Rabbi Eliezer Sabri Lameimer that mizake esa'ani b'chol hagadish. Why? And that's a big cloud when it comes to kinyanim. And so paskins the Rambam that if you make a kinyan, you know what the case of the Rambam is? The Rambam spoke about karka. Imagine a person has 3 pieces of property, and they're all the same value, and he's selling one of the 3. No, if you don't define which one, even if the owner makes a kinyan on all, it's a star. You're making a kinyan star. You're right that one of the 3 is yours. You give the star, has a kinyan star. Nothing is acquired. Because it's a davar she'ena mesuyim. That's Rabbi Eliezer. You can't pick up 101 ears or 2 ears if you don't know which one you are acquiring. So therefore, he has to say that he has to mezakes ani b'chol hagadish. In other words, now, guys, don't make a mistake. That's all Rabbi's understanding of our Mishnah. According to Reish Lakish, according to the Tanakama, you don't have to make a kinyan. It was Lekula Alma, the Tanakama's Rabbi Yossi. The only question is, what does Shitas Rabbi Yossi? Does the Tanakama hold you have to make a kinyan, or you don't even have to make a kinyan? Now, let me ask you a question. Even according to Rabbi, that according to the Tanakama, you have to make a kinyan. Is pshat in the Tanakama that you don't have to give to the ani the whole Gadish? He can only have in mind the one leket, but he will agree with Rabbi Eliezer? Says the Gemara, no, we don't say that. Because there's a problem with Rabbi Eliezer. What's the problem? This whole idea of matana almanas lahachsid, shma matana, not everyone agrees to that. In other words, it's not like the Tanakama is saying you don't need to go as far as. The Tanakama doesn't have the solution of Rabbi Eliezer because he doesn't agree that you can make a matana almanas lahachsid. Therefore, he holds a kinyan on a davar she'ena b'soim must work, and you have to make a kinyan. The ani has to own it, and then they make the exchange, which is exactly what happens according to Rabbi over there in Bechayis. Exactly, there's two animals. The kohen has to get both, and then one he gives back. It must be that way.
Do they have to mix in a third one over there?
No, they don't, because there's no issue of meisers. It's gewaltig. Now it says the Gemara that the Tanakama holds that if you were to give the whole Gadish for the ani to acquire it, why would the owner do it? Because matana manas lahachsid. You know what he calls a matana manas lahachsid? Mizaka mimina l'smoinoi. It's like a person you're giving from your right hand to your left hand. What are you doing? It's garnished. Ve'eno zechiyah at all. In other words, he cannot agree with Rabbi Eliezer. But the latter Tanya Rabbi Eliezer holds. Yes, uzechiyahu. Why? Because matana almanas lahachsid, shema matana. Guys, this is great. Just to make a little bit of a jump, that in Pirkei Avos it says that everything is on a loan to us, correct? And God collects whenever God chooses to collect. Which means we don't even own. We don't even own. Everything is on a loan. Maybe that's subject to a machlekes. Maybe you can say that maybe there's some who hold that while we're here, it's ours. It's a matana manas lahachsid. That's for sure. How much ownership do we have? And it's interesting that you actually find in halacha two different things. You have that over halachically, over me, over my life, over my body, I don't own it at all. It's not even mine. Shu'ula. That's one of the reasons why, right? We can't wound ourselves. It's not mine. My money, halachically, I own. I have there's an isur of baltashkas, but it's mine. I can do with my stuff with whatever I please. If I'm not mine, how can my money be mine? Maybe it's connected to this question. How do we view life? If you don't subscribe to Amatana Almanas Lahachsid, then none of it is ours forever. That we all know. Then it's never ours. All the fundraisers try to convince you that's nicht dein Geld. It's not your money. No. But it's the fundraiser's money. That's God's money. All right. So here we go. Now, I know that it's a couple of daf back, but guys, in daf lamed ches, we learned the Mishnah, and if you were to think a second, you're going to chap that the Mishnah on daf lamed ches is a direct stira to the Mishnah over here. Let me remind everyone what we just learned. The Mishnah over there is asking whether one person could acquire leket on behalf of someone else. So we learned the whole topic over here. First of all, for me to be, we're going with the approach of Rashi and Tosfos, unlike many others, that Zchia is mitam shlichus. Let's go with that. So, of course, if an ani appoints a shliach to pick up for him, that works. Question is, can I appoint myself to do something for you? That was the whole question. Remember, that the Zachal Adam Shaloi B'fanav, but Peya, like Hefker, like a Metzia, maybe it's B'makim Shechav Lachedim, because other people theoretically could have taken it and they can't. So that was one topic, and we learned Rabbi Shua ben Levi. We quoted the Sugya in Bavli. So let's not go into that part. Let's simply, the Mishnah opens up, can the owner of the field pick up the leket on behalf of a nun? That was a Mishnah. Machloikas Kanoim. Rabbi Eliezer says, Zachaloi. Yeah. The Chachamim say, ain't a Zachaloi. What's the whole topic? What's the whole daf today? Especially with Rabbi Eliezer. What was the problem? How can the owner make an exchange on behalf of a ani? The ani never acquired it. By the way, this is a good kasha l'shitas chachamim. L'shitas Rabbi Eliezer. Why does the ani have to lift it? Let's go. He lifts the whole. Why? Let the balabas. The balabas owns it. Zachal adam shalei b'fanav. And regardless how you learn the Mishnah, especially according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Rabbi Shua ben Levi on Daf Lamed Ches says that the Mishnah is machlokes b'balabayis usher. We say a double migur, even though he's a balabas is not allowed to take his own leket, even if he's an ani. On top of that, an usher b'chal cannot take leket. So he said no, he's betoiras leket because even though he cannot get it, he can give leket. And however we learned the sugya and Daf Lamed Ches, the bottom line is especially according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Rabbi Eliezer has no problem with the owner simply by wanting to acquire it on behalf of an ani to affect the kingdom for an ani. So the whole thing doesn't work. The irony, when you learn the Mishnah, especially according to Reish Lakish, the Chachamim hold, no ani is needed. Rabbi Eliezer says, no, it doesn't work. The ani has to why? According to Rabbi Eliezer, mamish, nothing is needed. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't even need, not even according to the Shlakish, according to Rabbi Yossi, that asu she'enu zoiche kezoicha. No, he is zoiche, zachem adam shaloi b'fanav. That's a gvaldik estira. Good, let's read it inside. Frag the Gemara, whether you're going to Svatani, Rab Ze'eda and Rababo in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, they asked the bomb stira that Mechalfa she tosay the Rabbi Eliezer. There is a inversion of it, like he is contradicting himself. Come on, over there on Daf Lamed Ches, Rabbi Eliezer is the one that says that Mishulik could pay Ava Amad, that he has to say, Harezu le'ish ploini. Rabbi Eliezer says, Zachaloi. Remember now that you're saying, Gavalt, it's a problem. And B'cho hu Amar Hachim. The whole issue is not a non-issue. Answers the Gemara, Daf Mem Vav. The Gabbai is thinking, it's a bomb question. And the answer must be, I know there's different girsa'os. The girsa is, let's go with the Bishita son Heshivan. Bishita means Rabbi Eliezer is telling the Chachamim, I'll say it by heart, according to me, I got no problem. Of course, what you're saying works for me. Everything is flipped now.
Here by us?
Here.
Okay.
Why? Based on the Mishnah Daf Lamed Ches, since the Rabbi Eliezer holds that the owner can be zoicha on behalf of a ani, so he can make an exchange. The ani owns it. We just don't know which one, but the ani already owns it. That's the way Chalipin has to work. So the owner owns his. The ani owns his. And he makes an exchange. Rabbi Eliezer is just challenging the Chachamim. All of you guys that have disagreed with me on Daf Lamed Ches, you hold that the balabais cannot make zechiyah on behalf of an ani. So how can he make an exchange? According to you, it must be that he lifts the whole gabish. That's the word of the Mishnah. There's no other way out. That's called bishitas and yeshivan. Bishitaschem. In other words, according to me, of course what you said works, but that's only according to me. Don't ignore the fact that you argued with me on Daf Lamed Ches. B'shitaschem sha'atem oimrim. No, ani has to acquire it, and now we have to make a chalipin. Hey, ani hazeh machlif davar shalei bal l'reshusay. And again, by the way, and let's just plug in what we learned today. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't subscribe. Let's go with Reish Lakish to Shitas Rabbi Yossi the Tana. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold that asu she'eino zoiche kezoiche. You can't use that. Rabbi Eliezer doesn't hold that the solution will be lifting up to acquire that one, which is the way Rabbi Yossi understands the Amoira Shita of Rabbi Yossi and Bechayres. Why would that not work? Because you cannot make a king and Adavar Mesuyam. Rabbi Eliezer knows that the Chachamim, the Tanakama, they don't agree with Matana Amanas Lahachzer Shema Matana. They don't agree with it. So Rabbi Eliezer is making a checkmate. According to me, nothing is needed. According to you, nothing will work. Alamad, the Tanakama will hold like Rabbi Yossi. The Tanakama will hold. You could make a king Adavar She'enim Mesuyim, whether they Shlakish, whether Rabbi. But Rabbi Eliezer is telling the Tanakama, according to you, there's nothing you can do. Ella, the only solution will be but really what he's saying, but you don't even agree to that, because you don't hold that matana manas lahachse shema matana. Is lav shema matana. It's almost like Rabbi Eliezer is telling the Chachamim that now you have to give in to what I said on the Flamet Ches. Without the instrument of Zechiyav, you're trapped. And the Chacham, Tanakama, is not trapped. Either they hold the way the Shlakish explains Rabbi Yossi and Bechayres, Asu she'eino zoiche kezoiche, or even if Rabbi Yossi and Bechayres is dafka speaking about a case where the Kohen took the Bechar, must be that the Ani took the Gadish. The Ani did not take the whole Gadish for himself. No one does that. You're giving from your right hand to your left hand. The owner told the Ani, lift up the Gadish. One ear is yours. I don't know which one. Have a mind to be kind of yours. And then we'll make an exchange. And the Chachamim, the Tanakama, Ramishna holds that does work. A king, who cares if it's a Davar She'enim Mesuyim? He made a king in Hagbah. He